Okay, here are the Module 15 Part 3 notes, page 3. So again, hypothesis testing with means. Example 2. According to a study in 2015, the mean number of text messages sent and received by teenagers daily was 500. So that's what we're testing against. We have got a mean of 500. We have another researcher who wants to dispute this claim to see if the mean is different from. Okay. So my null hypothesis, start with that one, is that the mean is actually 500. My alternative hypothesis is that the mean is something other than 500. What that means as we look at this, my mean of 500 is my t of 0. If I want it different than 500, I am okay with either tail here. So let's see what we got. I have a random sample of 100 teenagers. I have a sample mean of 535 texts with a standard deviation of 150. We want our level of significance to be 0.10, and I've got a two-tailed test, so I have to cut that in half. So I get an alpha of 0.05 here and 0.05 here. I especially like using critical value method when it's a two-tailed test, because here now, if I want to find my critical value, I got T dot inverse of 0.05, that's the area to the left. My degree of freedom is 99, 100 minus 1. I get a value of negative 1.66, which means that my critical value over here is positive 1.66. So, what do we got? We need a t-data. I have 535 text messages in my sample, 500 for the population as stated. Standard deviation is 150, and we're going to divide that by the square root of 100. I get a t-data of 2.33, which is, over here in this region, it's bigger than 1.66. So we are going to reject H naught. There is sufficient evidence at the alpha equal 0.1 level of significance to suggest the average number of texts received now sent and received by teenagers is different than, can't say more or less, even with what we see in our t value, is different than 500. Example 3. We are interested in testing whether the mean age onset of anorexia nervosa in young women has been decreasing. Assuming that the previous mean age of onset was 15 years old, so there's our mu. Data was gathered from 20 young women who were admitted for the eating disorder. Assuming the sampling distribution is normally distributed, test this with a level of significance of 0.05. Okay, notice here we are not giving a sample mean or standard deviation, which is good. If you choose to use a hypothesis testing for means for Project 2, you are going to need to do this part. So let's talk about how we get X bar. We are going to enter all of these values into a column in Excel, and then I am going to use the average command. I'm going to go my first number to the last number. I get an X bar here of 13.9. To find my sample standard deviation dot S for a sample. Still first number to last number. And I get a standard deviation of 1.65. Okay. So let us take a look at what we got. I got a null hypothesis that the mean is actually 15 years. Alternative hypothesis that my mean is less than 15. So if I'm looking at this in terms of my distribution, here's my t-value of 0, that's 15 years. My rejection region is this, what's alpha, 0.05? 0.05 down here. Same thing I did before. We are going to find our critical value here. I got equal t dot inverse of 0.05 and 19 degrees of freedom. I get a negative 1.73. So all I need to do now is find my test statistic. I have 13.9 minus 15 over my standard deviation of 1.65 divided by the square root of 20. I got a test statistic here of negative 2.98, which puts me well into this rejection region. So we are going to reject H naught. There is enough evidence at the alpha equals 0.05 level of significance to suggest the average age of onset of anorexia is less than 15.